Well, at 10 o'clock, this is Sky News at 10, our top story tonight. And breaking news from the United States, Charlie Kirk, a leading conservative activist and prominent supporter of Donald Trump, is dead after being shot at a college event in Utah. Well, heavily armed SWAT teams are at the scene tonight, searching for the suspect on the campus. So let's start News at 10 then with that breaking news from the United States, where the right-wing influencer Charlie Kirk has died after being shot while he was speaking at an event in Utah. The US President Donald Trump has written in a post on Truth Social, "The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you." Well, let's bring in our US correspondent, David Blevins, a massive influence then on the right of politics, especially amongst younger people, and a shock tonight for his supporters and indeed for the Trump family, David.
Yes, there will be so many questions about the political impact of this, but they will wait a little longer because right now it is a security issue. The fact that law enforcement is attempting to find a gunman or gunwoman on the campus in Utah where Charlie Kirk has been sadly shot dead. He was seated in a tent fielding questions from the audience when a single shot rang out, impacting him in the neck. There was an immediate response, as you would expect, from the audience, absolute panic and chaos as they fled for their lives. And people are in disbelief that this could have happened because Charlie Kirk was a person of enormous influence, not just across the United States, but with conservative and particularly conservative young people across the globe. He was on the first stage of what he called the American Comeback Tour, addressing an audience of 2,000 to 3,000 people at Utah Valley University. When the shot was fired this afternoon, he was immediately taken to a hospital nearby, and within the last hour, President Trump has confirmed that he has lost his life in this tragic shooting.
And the event he was at, we understand, had been met with divided opinions on campus, David. An online petition calling for university administrators to bar Kirk from appearing had received nearly 1,000 signatures. The university had issued a statement citing First Amendment rights to allow him to speak, a commitment to free speech, intellectual inquiry and constructive dialogue were the words they used. But in terms of the security he had some private security there, presumably some from the university, but this will be amongst the questions, certainly, for the authorities this evening.
Yes, and of course it is very difficult to secure a site outdoors. How do you lock down an entire university campus? How do you secure when you have an audience of 2,000 to 3,000 people? And when you look at some of the videos circulating online, if he had security with him, a security detail, there is no sign of them in the pictures. In fact, he appears to have been wounded for some time before anyone reached him as he sat under the tent where he was addressing the audience when the shots rang out. But of course, it highlights just how deeply polarised America is in terms of its politics, and also what a dangerous place this is, still paralysed over the issue of access to guns. And those are all questions that are going to be asked in the aftermath of this shooting. There was also real confusion because initially we were told a suspect had been taken into custody. In fact, we saw some pictures which appeared to show a suspect being taken into custody. But the university has since confirmed that there is not a suspect in custody, and that is why you are seeing the National Guard, the FBI and the various law enforcement agencies responding to the extent that they are on the Utah Valley University campus this evening.
Well, Nigel Farage, David, has just put this out as well in tribute. This is a very dark day for American democracy. I am desperately sad for Charlie, his wife and children, issuing a picture, as you can see, of the two together. But in terms of the work of Charlie Kirk, we know that he'd helped run a Get Out the Vote campaign for Mr Trump's 2024 campaign, trying to energise disaffected Conservative voters who rarely vote. He'd supported him in 2016 as well. But really, you know, the fundamental effort of his work was venturing onto liberal-leaning campuses where many other Republicans feared to tread.
And I think it would be virtually impossible to exaggerate the influence that Charlie Kirk had. He had an online following of nearly 20 million people at home and abroad. He hosted a daily podcast and radio programme, The Charlie Kirk Show. He was the founder and president of a non-profit organisation called Turning Point, which promotes conservative ideas among high school and college students. And of course, in terms of profile, he was very vocal in his support of the Republican candidate and subsequently President of the United States, Donald Trump, who has paid tribute to him this evening. He spoke at a rally in support of Donald Trump just days after he survived an assassination attempt in July of last year. He was very good friends with US Vice President J.D. Vance, with Donald Trump Jr., the president's son. So a person who was right at the heart of this administration, even though he didn't hold office in it. But because of the extent of influence he had, Donald Trump suggesting that no one understood or had the heart of this generation of young people in America more than Charlie Kirk did.
Well, we know during this intended speech at Utah Valley University, there were slogans behind him, the American comeback and prove me wrong. Certainly social media video showed him apparently being shot in the neck and moving backwards. Let's listen then to witnesses who were at the event.
I was watching from pretty close up and I heard a pop and I thought, no, that nobody's shooting firecrackers, right? This is the middle of the day. And then I watched a fountain of blood come out of the side of his neck like a water fountain. And it was surreal. Everyone dropped. And I was like, where's the gunman? I don't see any gunman. And then I dropped.
Yes, some very difficult testimony there of those who witnessed this event, as you say, an enormous influence on the right of politics, and somebody who'd worked with one of Donald Trump's children, worked for him too. You know, what does this mean in terms of the polarization now of the United States and the impact that this will have on his supporters?
And I think it is a moment of real jeopardy for the United States. We've known for a very long time that this is a deeply polarised place. I think it's why you are hearing both Republicans and Democrats of office in the United States speaking this evening about the danger of gun violence, because they're very aware of how deeply polarised America is. We're also very conscious of the ongoing debate that exists about gun crime. Just 10 days ago, we were reporting the latest school shooting and again raising the question about access to guns in this country. But America perhaps tonight must now pause and ask itself the question, is the shooting dead of Charlie Kirk, a conservative influencer who was known at home and abroad, going to be the thing that brings this country together, or could it actually drive the country further apart? We've seen so often in the past how tragedy can be politicised here, but in many ways this is not a moment for politics. It's a moment to pause and reflect on the fact that a 31-year-old father of young children has been shot dead on a university campus in Utah, and a moment for people across America and across the world perhaps to think about just how polarising politics can be and whether or not there is a way to find their way back closer to some sort of middle ground.
The Conservative Political Action Conference, we are deeply saddened by the loss of our dear friend Charlie Kirk. He was a great young man, father, husband and patriot who we were honoured to stand alongside in the fight for freedom. Our prayers are with his friends and family, especially his wife and two young children. God be with his family in this most difficult time. We will never forget Charlie Kirk's work for the soul of the nation. That is CPAC, as I said, the Conservative Political Action Conference. And this shooting David, coming amid a spike in political violence, you might argue, in the United States across all parts of the spectrum. The attacks included an assassination back in June of a Minnesota state politician and her husband, firebombing of a Colorado parade to demand the release of hostages in Gaza, a fire set at the house of Pennsylvania's governor who was Jewish back in April, and of course going right back to the shooting too of Donald Trump during a campaign rally last year. You know, there is a real concern now, isn't there, about what happens next and the reaction that this will bring. In terms of the work that he did for the last election for Donald Trump, Mr. Kirk called the Trump versus Kamala Harris choice a spiritual battle, saying he demanded a Christian country. I mean, what was the positioning of him? What were his views?
Well, he was certainly a very deeply religious person, obviously to the evangelical right of US politics. In fact, just 2 hours before this shooting took place, his wife posted a verse from the Bible online, "God is our refuge and strength," from the book of Psalms. So even before she found herself in the throes of tragedy, she was posting her religious expression online this afternoon in the United States. And so often that, of course, is one of the issues. The fact that politics and religion are often brought together, and it's not just about ideology then, it's about something much deeper. People believe they are battling for religious liberty and for their rights. It's not just about politics, if I can put it that way. And in many ways, Charlie Kirk epitomised all of that battle. He had a huge following online, hugely influential. His podcast always in the top 10 in terms of audience figures, and yet he was also quite a controversial figure, very outspoken on issues like the January 6th raid on the US Capitol, disputing frequently the result of the 2020 election. At that stage, posting online at one stage that he was encouraging bus loads of patriots, as he described them, to make their way to the US Capitol in support of Donald Trump, claiming that he had been robbed of the election. He spoke quite often about gender issues, all of that fueling a mixture of support and opposition, because several thousand people had signed a petition ahead of his event at the Utah Valley University this afternoon, opposing his presence there.
Well, the group Turning Point, which was set up, I think, back in 2012, wasn't it, by Charlie Kirk, when he was just 18 years old, was known for flamboyant displays of pyrotechnics and so on, anything to, you know, introduce politics effectively to young people. How much did his views, do you think, also inform President Trump's battles with, you know, certain universities in America about the right to free speech?
Well, I think they would have considerably informed those views. We've seen a constant battle between this administration and the various universities across the United States, particularly those that are more to the left or to the centre, who are more liberal in their views. And Charlie Kirk would have been the complete opposite of all of that. The views he was expressing this afternoon at the university in Utah would have been highly controversial to many people, and yet we see from the pictures that there were more than 2,000, perhaps as many as 3,000 people in the audience who'd come to listen to him. In fact, he was very well known for being open to debate with people who held an opposing view, and it appears today may in fact have been engaged in a debate with some members of the audience, certainly was at least fielding questions from some members of the audience when the shot rang out and he visibly slumped in the chair. You could see the response of the audience immediately. There was chaos and panic on the campus, and as we can now see, there is a very large-scale security response underway. In addition to the local police, the FBI has been deployed. FBI Director Kash Patel says they are responding and will support the investigation fully. There are members of the National Guard on campus now too, and that will, of course, be to some extent because authorities continue to search for a suspect. There was confusion initially when we were told a suspect had been taken into custody. We're told that is no longer the case. So while there are many political questions, there is a security issue at the heart of this right now, as there is a hunt on for whoever carried out this shooting.
Yes, certainly a man was detained during the event. Attendees there thought he was the shooter. Police later confirming that he was not. Suspicion now that the shooter could have been some distance away. But the pictures show the Sorensen Center courtyard on the Utah Valley University campus. A single shot, as you suggested, rang out. Kirk seen reaching up with his right hand as a large volume of blood gushed from the left side of his neck. American comeback there you see on that tarpaulin. Prove me wrong, the other signs there. This the work of Charlie Kirk. Just had words also from Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative Party leader here in the UK. There are no words good enough to express the horror of this. The killing of Charlie Kirk is a blow to everything Western civilization stands for: open discourse, robust debate and peaceful dissent. He lived his life by those very principles, no matter the danger it put him in. This may have happened far from our shores, but the rising intolerance of opposing views affects us all. We cannot turn a blind eye to it. My thoughts are with Charlie's family, his wife Erica, and their children. The words there of Kemi Badenoch tonight, raising the spectre of the polarisation of society, both in the States and indeed elsewhere on a number of issues. So the work now, David, as you're suggesting, is to find whoever did this, and swiftly, presumably.
Oh, yes, and as you can see, the scale of the security response is enormous, Anna. Full-scale manhunt underway on the campus and surrounding area at Utah Valley University, where the shooting took place this afternoon, with such tragic consequences. We were told a suspect was initially in custody. We're told that is no longer the case. It would appear that someone may have been inadvertently detained who was not the person who had carried out the shooting, and therefore there will be serious concern that this is not yet a secure zone. But beyond all of that, as we've been discussing, there are so many political questions about what this means for a deeply polarised America, a place that is paralysed, it would seem, on the issue of gun violence, on the debate around access to guns. We are hearing senior politicians from both sides of the House talking about their concerns about gun violence, but we've heard that so many times before, and one has to wonder what will be the issue. Will there be an event like this, a tragedy like this, that will be the tipping point for America, that will make people move back to the centre, to a place of middle ground where there can be healthy political discourse? Or could it in fact be yet another thing to drive the wedge deeper, to cause an even greater divide between the left and the right across the United States of America, and indeed further afield, as the Leader of the Opposition has been suggesting, because Charlie Kirk was not just a person of enormous influence in the United States, with nearly 20 million followers online, a writer, a broadcaster, an activist. He was also known globally because of his online presence, speaking just in June of this year at the Oxford Union in London.
Well, he came from Chicago, didn't he? Attracted to politics early on, volunteering for the campaign of a US Senate member, Illinois Republican Mark Kirk. No relation, in fact, during his high school years. And he set up Turning Point in suburban Chicago back in 2012, aged 18, along with a Tea Party activist. Not immediately successful, but then Kirk's efforts confronting liberals in the academic world eventually won over an influential set of conservative financiers. And certainly he has been accused by critics of promoting falsehoods and conspiracy theories on issues including COVID-19, climate change and the 2020 US election. Well, joining us now is Tiana Lau and Laura Lowe, who I understand were at the event. Tell us what you saw.
Yeah, so we were into the second question, and that was when we heard a gunshot. But during that time, oh no, we maybe thought it was a firecracker.
I thought it was a firecracker, so I looked up in the sky. That's why I kind of missed what happened. But
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like we looked to each other and we are like, okay, like it seems like it's fine. But and then we saw everyone ducking down. And so we ducked down as well, and everyone started crying, and everyone was saying, get down, get down. And then everyone just started rushing to inside the building. And so we did too, just crying. Yeah.
And could you see Charlie Kirk at this point? Could you see what had happened to him?
I didn't really see it because it happened too fast. And then I was also just looking at the person who's asking the question. So I didn't really get that part.
And then also as well, we were looking at him directly, like we were looking at the person asking the question, but we believe that the gunshot maybe could have came from the left side. And so we couldn't see from that angle because we were sitting on his right side.
Yeah.
Well, clearly there was panic, people ducking, as you said, running to escape, going back into the university campus. You know, on reflection, how are you feeling now after hearing the news that he's died?
I was really shocked. I was on a call with my mom, and then all of a sudden she just told me that he's dead, because we really was wishing that he's still alive, because we were like, he didn't get shot in the chest or something. So I don't know. It was just.
Yeah, I definitely started crying. Like it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you were on, it's still a human life. So I was really sad to hear the news from a friend that told me about it.
And explain why you were, attracted to go to his event today, what you were interested in hearing him say.
Yeah, we were both. So we consider ourselves non-political, but we did want to go see a polite debate. We thought that it was going to be peaceful, and of course, we didn't expect anything like this was going to happen at a small college to us. And so we just went there because we were interested. We saw him online, and it seemed like there was a huge crowd forming as well.
Yeah.
Well, he's had a huge influence, huge numbers of followers. What impact do you think this will have on, political discourse in campuses like yours and across America?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I do think maybe in the future we'll improve on like security checks a little bit more, because it was a more like an open space. So I'm kind of concerned about what's the school going to happen, like just like tomorrow. Am I going to be able to go on campus? Is it going to be safe? Or what's going to happen after this?
Well, it does appear that the suspect has not yet been apprehended. So presumably, potentially you won't be going to campus tomorrow. But does it feel like politics in America is febrile right now? Do you think, does it feel divided?
I think that, it's always been divided. And that is why I try to stay away from that type of stuff. I mean, it was really scary because especially during the second question, he was talking about a transgender shooter during that time. And like shortly after that, that was when they shot.
Yeah.
So I definitely do think that definitely on the conservative side, they are going to start blaming the LGBTQ community as well. But I don't know how the other community feels about that, but I do think that there is a possibility for a divide in America right now, especially with this.
And he was known, as I was starting to say there, for speaking about some of the conspiracy theories surrounding things like COVID-19 or even the Trump election, January the 6th and so on. Is that, the influence he had, would that have drawn people to those views, do you think?
Oh, I definitely think so. Yeah. I mean, people were shouting USA, USA, Donald Trump in the beginning. So
yeah, people were really hyped up and then cheering all kinds of political stuff in the beginning.
Yeah, especially considering that Utah is a primarily Republican state. So everyone was really excited to come.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you talking to us. It's obviously been a shocking occasion for you, everyone who was there, and indeed your university. So we really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's speak now to Jack Ross, CEO of the UK wing of Turning Point, the organisation run by Charlie Kirk. You know, this is an extraordinary and deeply sad day for everyone in your organisation.
It's absolutely shocking. We're heartbroken over here in the UK. We haven't had a lot of contact with the US branch, but I know they're completely devastated. Charlie was really the driving force behind Turning Point, and it was so impactful. He led the charge. Personally, I think he was the best debater in the world, and the world's a worse place without him. Unfortunately, there's no reason for this to have happened. It's obviously, we don't want to speculate about why, but I think it's quite obvious. But it's heartbreaking, completely heartbreaking. He was a fantastic man. He took the time to help us in Britain. He didn't have to. He had such a challenge, especially in the States, trying to push everything towards conservatism and Christianity, but he still took the time to help us, to promote us, to train us, and to push us to be the best sort of political activists that we could be.
Well, tell us about the organisation that he founded back in 2012 in a suburb in Chicago, and what its role was in the UK.
Certainly, I think it very much is a rags to riches story with Charlie. I remember he actually told me once when they first started out at Turning Point USA, they had zero funding, and they'd do tabling stands where they'd go to universities and speak to students about campaigning. And so for all the equipment they used to go to the university, they'd buy it in the morning, and then they'd have to go and return it at the end of the day. And then to build that up to a because they couldn't afford to keep it, but then to build that up to a multi-million-dollar organization which does a hell of a lot of good across the country. It brings people together. It created communities on campuses, university campuses, and helped students feel like they weren't alone. People who were being attacked for their views finally had a group who they could socialize with, who they could have events with, and started to actually be able to voice their opinions, not feel they would be discriminated against. We have a similar organization in the UK, so the idea we have is to promote conservatism and Christianity and patriotism to young people and provide a network where young people who share our values can come together in a positive environment and not feel like they're going to be attacked for their views, and also find ways to positively challenge each other as well as engage in debates, et cetera, et cetera.
And is that getting more traction? Clearly, even tonight on Sky News, we focused on immigration as a theme, for example, elements like that. Have that drawn people to your organisation?
Certainly, I think thanks to people like Charlie. So Charlie, as I said, is the best debater in the world. He was able to help arm a lot of people with facts. And actually, obviously it is speculation, but I imagine one of the reasons he was killed is because they couldn't defeat him in a debate. I've never seen anyone be able to stump him. He's been able to answer on so many topics across the board. And, you know, it's thanks to Charlie that we've enjoyed the success in the UK and also in America. And certainly, as I said, he helped arm people who are maybe politically illiterate or young people who weren't interested in politics, helped get them to understand in a youth-friendly and social media-friendly way about very important issues, issues which had previously been swept under the carpet, particularly around things like economics, helping people understand about taxes and capitalism. And yeah, as I said, it's just appalling what's happened to him.
Mm. Well, I can hear you're upset, so apologies for the timing of this question, which was really, what about the critique of the work he did in terms of promoting conspiracy theories on things like COVID-19, climate change, the 2020 US election, and this idea of free speech absolutism, but only when somebody approves of your views? I mean, there is a real debate about that as well.
So obviously, America is a different situation to Britain. They do promote, they have a lot better free speech laws than I think we do. Certainly, we've seen the two-tier policing as well as clamp down on people's viewpoints in Britain. Charlie, I didn't agree with everything Charlie said, but then that's the beauty of the organisation Turning Point. You don't have to agree 100% with everyone. It's about having the ability to debate people. And as you said, Charlie supposedly had conspiracy theories, but people could go and debate him. He went to universities so people could challenge his views. And as I said, people might call it conspiracy theories, but I've not seen him being stumped yet. Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate your time, Jack Ross, CEO of the UK wing of Turning Point. A very difficult day for you and all in your organisation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, joining me now is Democrat and lawyer for the US Commission on Civil Rights, Michael Yaki. Welcome to you. Your reaction then to what has happened?
It's a terrible tragedy, but one of a list of terrible tragedies that the United States is unfortunately, getting used to. We had 2 Democratic lawmakers shot earlier this year. The governor of Pennsylvania was in his house with his children and family when someone tried to set fire to it. And today, Charlie Kirk, who admittedly is not someone who is someone I would support, but I do admire the fact what he did and his commitment to his cause. And he certainly has a large following and people who are devoted to him, as you just saw from the previous speaker. And it's a terrible tragedy for his family. It's a terrible tragedy for his supporters. And it's just a terrible day in the United States.
Well, he was a supporter of the right to bear arms, was he not? He suggested that incidents of gun crime were worth that, effectively. But, what will the impact of this be, do you think, on the discourse, which, as you suggested, is, for some, dangerous?
I mean, this has been, like I said, it's been an extremely politically violent year, or actually 18 months, beginning with the near assassination of then candidate Trump during a campaign. Again, to the political assassinations of 2 lawmakers in Minnesota, and then today to Charlie Kirk. I mean, people are trying to liken this to the political and social upheavals and violence of the 60s and 70s. I think this is very different. We're dealing with people who are in their own silos. They're listening to a feedback loop of whatever conspiracy theories they may or may not have on both the left and the right. And you have, in the United States, easy access to guns. And this is, something that unfortunately can happen. And I'm hoping that what becomes of this, because he was so beloved by people on the right, because he was so close to the president of the United States, maybe this finally sparks the conversation that we've been trying to have in the United States for the last probably 50, 60 years, which is, what do we do about political, and what do we do about gun violence in the United States? We made the remark about Charlie Kirk's remarks about the Second Amendment and a life here and there may be worth it. I think today, I think there are a lot of people who might disagree with that, who follow Charlie Kirk today, because this is probably someone who we don't know who the suspect is. What we do know is they had a firearm. It was probably a long gun, like a rifle, and it was something where we'll find out that they had easy access to it. And we cannot live in a country, we cannot have a true democracy if people can disagree with you by the barrel of a gun. That's not how we should live as anyone in any democracy in this world, and certainly not in my country, the United States. So it's a terrible, tragic day. Will this be something that becomes a place where the president can take leadership and deal with the issue of gun violence and political violence and what it means going forward? We don't know. What we do know is it's a terrible loss to the country, to his supporters, to the president of the United States, who was very close to him, to Charlie Kirk's family and friends. But where we go from here, I couldn't begin to fathom.
Well, while you're talking, we're watching pictures of the roof of the White House in Washington. As you can see, the US flag flying at half-mast there. We know that Turning Point, Charlie Kirk's organisation, had enthusiastically backed Donald Trump after he clinched the Republican nomination back in 2016. Mr. Kirk served as a personal aide to Donald Trump Jr., the president's eldest son, during the general election campaign. And Mr. Trump and his son, always effusive, often spoke at Turning Point conferences. J.D. Vance as well, we know, was close to Charlie Kirk. So this is, in effect, a personal tragedy for the Trump family, who were so close to him. We know that Charlie Kirk had run out a Get Out the Vote campaign for the last election in which Mr. Trump was successful. So this really goes to the heart and soul of Trump's America, doesn't it?
It really does. And you know, again, I disagreed strongly with Charlie Kirk, but I do admire the fact that he did something that I didn't think possible. He helped attract young people to his cause. You know, normally we always think that the younger are going to be more liberal liberal in their views, but he was someone who was able to sort of capture the folks who were maybe upset about the way the world was to them and their worldview, and turn it into instead of political apathy, into political action. Some of us condemn him for it, but at the same time, he did what a democracy should do, which is he went and performed at the ballot box. And again, that's where political disagreement, political discord, and political policy should be solved, not at the barrel of a gun, as it may have been done today. Again, we don't know the motivation, we don't know who did this, why it was done, but more than likely, it's probably because of some vehement disagreement on some political issue with him, and someone who for reasons unknown to us right now, decided they wanted to solve it through assassination, which, like I said, is a terrible legacy that this country has, and one that I pray to God one day will end.
And Michael, just one final thought. In a world where many nations are lamenting the disengagement of young people in politics for whatever reason, and whatever your views on Charlie Kirk, how important was he, do you think, in energising university campuses to start thinking about the political world?
Well, I think in some ways, putting on my political analyst hat, some of it's overstated. I don't think that it was something that was by a large majority of people on college campuses. But I do think what he did is he did something that every good political operative does. He turned what was there into actual votes, motivating people who are upset or disagree, even if they are a minority or a bare majority, but turning them into actual people who walk to the polls or fill out the application, the ballot, and mail it. That is something that only the very best of us in politics can manage to motivate someone to do. He did that, and for that he is well recognized. He was well rewarded. He is someone who people recognize was effective and did build a sort of movement of his own. But again, where this goes in the long run, 10 or 15 years from now, I don't know. But what I do know is, what I hope is that we sit down and talk about the fact that we cannot solve political disagreements through a gun.
Michael Yaki, really appreciate your contribution there. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Anna.
One more reaction coming in. Let's bring you some of that now, including from the new Foreign Secretary, in fact, Yvette Cooper, who has had this to say: deeply shocked by the killing of Charlie Kirk in Utah. Political violence has no place in our societies. Our thoughts and condolences are with his family. Netanyahu as well, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli leader, has said Charlie Kirk was murdered for speaking truth and defending freedom. A lion-hearted friend of Israel, he fought the lies and stood tall for Judeo-Christian civilization. I spoke to him only 2 weeks ago and invited him to Israel. Sadly, that visit will not take place. We lost an incredible human being. His boundless pride in America and his valiant belief in free speech will leave a lasting impact. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. And Boris Johnson as well has spoken out, saying the murder of Charlie Kirk is a tragedy and a sign of the utter desperation and cowardice of those who could not defeat him in argument. Charlie Kirk has been killed not for espousing extremist views, because he didn't. He's been killed for saying things that used to be simple common sense. He has been killed because he had the courage to stand up publicly for reasonable opinions held by millions and millions of ordinary people, both in the US and Britain. The world has a shining new martyr to to free speech. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family and loved ones. Well, let's bring in our correspondent then, David Blevins, who has been following this. A new martyr to free speech then, David.
Yes, Anna, you've brought us some responses there from the United Kingdom in the last few minutes. I have a response from former President Barack Obama, who has said, "We don't yet know what motivated the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk, but this kind of despicable violence has no place in our democracy. Michelle and I will be praying for Charlie's family tonight, especially his wife Erica and their 2 young children." We also have a response from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who says he is heartbroken and outraged by the assassination of Charlie Kirk. "He was an incredible husband and father and a great American. May he rest in eternal peace with our Lord," posts Marco Rubio. And we also have got some details in relation to the flag on the White House, the stars and stripes having been lowered to half-mast or half-staff, as they say here in America. The White House sharing a proclamation from President Trump ordering that the flag be flown at half-staff until sunset on September 14th in honour of the memory of Charlie Kirk, someone who has been described by President Trump as legendary and certainly someone of enormous influence. We've been hearing from people at Turning Point, the organisation he founded and of which he was president. It is the fastest growing youth activist movement in the United States. That speaks for itself, and an organisation that promotes conservatism and Christianity among high school and college students. And of course, when you hear the term Christianity, for some people that is a reference to Christian faith, to others it is a reference to Christian nationalism. And whether the ideology is to the left or to the right, it is deeply ingrained in the United States. That is what has caused such polarization and why we are seeing the kind of political violence that has erupted on the campus at Utah Valley University this afternoon, when a single shot during an event at which Charlie Kirk was speaking has claimed his life. And that will cause real concern at this moment of political jeopardy for a country that was already deeply divided and already paralysed to a large extent over the issue of gun violence.
Well, my last guest, I don't know if you heard him, Michael Yaki, suggested that possibly this could be the thing that prompts gun crime back to the top of the political agenda. But you mentioned Obama. Even Sandy Hook didn't do that. You know, he spelled that out as the greatest regret of his presidency, is what happened at Sandy Hook Elementary School. But in terms of Charlie Kirk and this potent political force he became, David, aged just 31, you know, driven by his podcast. I know NBC News figures suggest it was being downloaded between 500,000 and 750,000 times each day across social media. His following, 7.3 million followers on TikTok, 7 million on Instagram, 5 million on X, 3.5 million on YouTube. He definitely tapped in to something that America, young America, had been wanting to listen to.
Yes, Anna, and I would go as far as to say it wasn't just young America, but those with conservative leanings around the globe, because he had an enormous global following. In addition to that podcast and radio show, he authored a number of books, one of them simply entitled The Doctrine of MAGA. He was a person who rallied often to the cause of Donald Trump, appearing at rallies. Just after the attempted assassination of Donald Trump last year, he appeared at a rally urging people to come out and vote and ensure Donald Trump was returned to the White House, which he was in due course. He was a very good friend of people like Vice President J.D. Vance and Donald Trump's own son, Don Jr. So a person of enormous influence. It would be virtually impossible to exaggerate the influence that Charlie Kirk had. And that is why the impact of his death in these circumstances will be enormous across America and across the globe. It's it's not just a security issue tonight, although it is that at the university campus in Utah, because there is no suspect in custody. There is an enormous security operation underway there involving local law enforcement, the FBI, the National Guard, as they seek to track down who carried out this shooting. You can see the aftermath there from those aerial pictures. Charlie Kirk had been seated in that gazebo, engaging in debate or at least taking questions from members of the audience when a single shot rang out, claiming his life and prompting or sparking chaos on that campus as 2,000 to 3,000 people fled in fear. And that has now prompted this enormous security response, as you see on screen right now. And that will be the priority initially, the FBI supporting that investigation. But of course, the political questions, the political ramifications will continue for a very long time to come.
And David, we've seen the killings of politicians in this country, MPs. We've seen, or I mentioned earlier about this spike in political violence, including the killing of a Minnesota state lawmaker and her husband back in June. Are there demands for greater security for politicians in the United States? And will there be even more so after this incident?
There are questions every time it happens. There are assurances that security will be tightened, but it is very difficult, as you can see, at an open-air event to lock down a university campus, just like it was impossible for them to lock down the rally at Butler, Pennsylvania last July, when a person attempted to claim the life of the then Republican candidate, Donald Trump. Anna, I was in Minnesota in June following the death of that Minnesota senator and her husband, the attempted murders of other politicians on the same night. And then just 2 weeks ago, I was reporting the latest school shooting when 2 primary school-aged children were shot dead, also in Minnesota. And every time it happens, people say this must be the thing that changes it. We heard from the mayor of the city where the latest school shooting took place about how thoughts and prayers didn't cut it any longer, that there needed to be some tangible action. And yet one has to wonder, what is it going to take? What is going to be the incident that perhaps prompts a serious debate about access to guns in this country, and prompts a change of heart that brings to an end the sort of political violence we're seeing on all too regular a basis now?
Yes, and we've just had those words, I think you referred to them, the proclamation by the President as a mark of respect for the memory of Charlie Kirk by the authority vested in me as President of the United States by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America. I hereby order that the flag of the US shall be flown at half-staff at the White House and upon all public buildings and grounds, at all military posts and naval stations, and on all naval vessels of the federal government in the District of Columbia and throughout the United States and its territories and possessions until sunset September the 14th. I also direct that the flag shall be flown at half-staff for the same length of time at all United States embassies, consular offices and other facilities abroad, including all military facilities and naval vessels and stations. I mean, that really genuinely is a mark of the shock of the US president at the death of this man.
Yes, we are told the shock at the White House is palpable. Donald Trump knew Charlie Kirk personally and knew him well. He was a very good friend of Vice President J.D. Vance. Initially, when news of the shooting broke, they both issued statements calling people to pray for Charlie Kirk. So I think there is no doubt whatsoever that the administration will be rocked by this, as indeed US politics will be rocked by this. Charlie Kirk was very, very well known here, had an enormous profile because of his podcasting, the books he'd written, the fact he was the founder and president of the largest growing conservative activism organisation in the United States. And many people, I think, will pause and reflect on all of that and what it means for politics here. But of course, behind all of it, they will also be reflecting on the sheer human tragedy of this. A young woman tonight is a widow, and 2 young children have lost their father because of an act of what would appear to be political violence in the United States.
David, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's bring in now Radon Duchesne, who was in the front row of that event earlier today. Thank you for joining us. You must be certainly in a state of shock. Are you able to talk about what happened and the run-up to the shooting?
Yeah. I've already done a lot of interviews. So, yeah, what do you want to know? Do you want me to start from the beginning?
Why don't I start with what has been said with the audience questions being put to Charlie Kirk at the time. He was speaking, obviously, at this debate hosted by his non-profit political organisation, Turning Point USA. And immediately before the shooting, Mr. Kirk was taking questions from an audience member about mass shootings and gun violence. Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years, said an audience member. Mr. Kirk responded, too many. The questioner followed up, do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years? And Mr. Kirk asked, counting or not counting gang violence, and then a single shot rang out. Extraordinary to be on a debate about mass shooting when this happened. Is that your recollection of what happened?
That's exactly what happened. Yeah. And I was just, I was like I said, I was right up at the front and watching, and I heard the shot, and then I saw Charlie head go back, and then I just saw blood just pouring out. So I assumed they got his carotid artery, just by the amount of blood and that. And then I turned to look back because it sounded like the shot came from behind me and down into there. And then I just saw everybody starting to drop. So I dropped. I wasn't too worried because I didn't hear any more gunshots, but you never know. And then I just heard the crowd start yelling, run. And so we just all got up and left. So I didn't see them apprehend what they think is the alleged shooter. When I looked back up at the stage, when I got up, Charlie was already gone. So that's basically what I saw.
So you were right at the front, so you saw how serious it was. The crowd very quickly picked up on it. Was there a sense of panic? People talking about gasps and, after the shot rang out, some people thinking it was a firecracker. Was there a state of panic, or did people just literally try to flee?
Well, as I was telling my husband earlier, I think it was a different level all across. I think that there was some that were extremely panicked, and then there was some. I'm more of a calmer person, so I wasn't too worried since I didn't hear any more shots. Of course, I was concerned about Charlie, but when getting out to the cars, and it was a little bit of a trek to the cars. There was some people that were crying. There's just all levels of panic and non-panic.
Why had you gone to listen to him?
So I am more of a right-wing person. I do have some left views that I do follow and agree with. I watch a lot of him on YouTube, and I was just thinking, I wish he'd come to Utah. And the next thing I know, there was a Facebook ad saying he was coming to Utah. So I thought, well, I'll go because I like hearing the left side too, because I feel like I learn a lot more and it opens up my thought process a lot more. So I thought, well, I'll go. I probably will learn something, agree with some of the stuff Charlie says, some of the stuff he says I don't agree with. So it was just something for me to do, and just because I like him.
And, now your reaction, having been so close to, a shooting that has led to flags at half-mast, in American institutions across the world, what's your feeling now about what you've just witnessed and seen?
Well, what I'm kind of disgusted about is I posted on Facebook that I had seen that happen. Just a mass way for my family to know that I'm okay without having to call and text everybody individually. And seeing the amount of people that I have a lot of left friends, and I love my left friends just as much as I love my right-wing friends. But to watch them laugh at somebody, a father, a husband, get killed. That's probably the thing that's got me the most bent out of shape and upset, is seeing that it's celebrated, and it shouldn't be celebrated. We need to come together as a country and realize that there are different views, And I'm sure it's the same way there in London, well, in England, that you have your left and right wing people. We just need to come together and realize we all have different thoughts and views. And if we just come together, we might come up with a solution instead of combating each other.
Well, many people have, made or remarked that this really does show the polarization of politics in America. Does it feel like that for you, or does it feel like that after the reaction of people on Facebook?
Well, honestly, so I bought a Trump hat. I voted for Trump. Do I agree with everything he says? No, but majority of it I do like. And will I wear that hat in public? No, because it's not safe. The left seems to be definitely more of the violent ones. And I'm not talking about like the LGBTQ. I'm aligned with them for the most part. Just the whole like violent, you better, think how I think, or I'm going to call you names. I might hurt you. I just think it's not called for.
And here we are, gun crime again, yet another individual taken, by the act of a shooter. Will this ever be on the agenda, do you think, for America to take action on the number of arms that are held by people? Well,
so I am pro Second Amendment. I grew up with guns. We knew we did not touch the guns, or we would have to deal with my dad. And my dad wasn't the nicest if we did things that we weren't supposed to do. I think that there needs to be a lot more maybe education. I don't think taking guns away from citizens is the answer, because if we do, the only people that are going to have them are criminals. And so I think that there just needs to be some responsibility. Gun owners just need to be responsible. I don't think that we need to take them away.
Can I just ask you about the event itself and security there? Certainly the former Utah Congressman, Jason Chaffetz, a Republican who was at the event, suggested there was a light police presence and Charlie Kirk had some security of his own, but not enough. Did you see any security, or is it just impossible, do you think, to protect and ring-fence an event held outside like this?
There wasn't security checkpoints. When I saw that they were coming, I went onto the site, got my ticket. And so I had it on my phone ready to show. And when I showed up, there was nobody looking at tickets. So there was no like any type of security. They weren't checking bags. They weren't putting you through metal detectors. There was some cops, some police officers. I don't know how many. Because I was clear up at the front. I did see 3 or 4 right near where he was, and a few above. There was a walkway above. And then I saw a few out in the back when I turned around. And then he had some security, and I don't know if the campus has some security either. So yeah, I see where you guys were just showing the event, and I was right up against those little gates there. But yeah, there just wasn't any security really. And that kind of had me nervous when I was there. I was thinking, what's going to prevent anybody that wants to try to do something from happening? And the next thing you know, it happens.
Goodness me. Raiden Duchesne, right at the front row of those pictures we're showing there, listening and watching Charlie Kirk, and watched how he was shot, how he fell. We really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Sir Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, has put this out on X. My thoughts this evening are with the loved ones of Charlie Kirk. It is heartbreaking that a young family has been robbed of a father and a husband. We must all be free to debate openly and freely without fear. There can be no justification for political violence. But let's bring in our correspondent, David Blevins. And political violence this was, which causes a great deal of concern and fear for people there in the States. David.
Yes, the United States has been for quite some time a deeply polarised place, and a place where they continue to debate, as you've just heard, their Second Amendment rights, their right to bear arms, the whole debate around who should have access to guns and who shouldn't. But against that backdrop, America is this evening coming to terms with an immense tragedy. The Stars and Stripes, the American flag, having been lowered to half-staff on the White House at the direction of the President. It will remain there until September 14th as a tribute to Charlie Kirk, a man who President Trump has described as legendary. Donald Trump said Charlie Kirk understood and had the heart of American young people more than anyone else. And that is a reference to his enormous influence.
David Blevins, thank you very much indeed. So you join us on the day that an icon of the political right, Charlie Kirk, has been shot dead on a university campus in Utah. The US president, who was a supporter and had appeared at events with him, has ordered the US flag to fly at half-mast or half-staff at institutions across America, including here, these pictures at the White House in Washington. Videos posted to social media from Utah Valley University show Mr. Kirk speaking into a handheld microphone while sitting under a white gazebo emblazoned with the slogans, "The American Comeback" and "Prove Me Wrong."